Hi, welcome to Connecting the Dots, the podcast where we share our stories from the battlefield of consulting. I'm your host, Johnny Hill.
Hi, I'm Chris LaCava.
Hey, this is Katie Hart.
I'm Oscar Hernandez.
Hey, I'm Kareem Jamal.
Today, we're talking about all things product thinking, what it is, why it's important, how it's shifted and changed over the years, and where we see it going in the future. Let's get started. So to kick off this conversation, it might be good to start with kind of a general history of product management, where it's been, where it's going, and kind of what that looks like in our industry.
Yeah, I think I can cover that, Johnny. So it might be good to start with product thinking first. I think it's a logical, organic extension of design thinking, which if you're unfamiliar with design thinking, it's a school of thought that came out of Stanford, I believe. And it really is a philosophy that grounds designers and developers as well, and now product managers around this sense of gaining empathy for the user and keeping that user-centered design philosophy through basically a agile iterative process of creating, something, works, software, whatever. So if we look at product management taking on that philosophy, and I think it's relatively recently, at least formally, although informally it's been happening for a while, and you kind of look back over the past, 15, 20 years, you can see how product management has shifted from its, I guess, more traditional roots through to that more inclusive product thinking, design thinking set of philosophies. So if I remember back 20 years, I'm probably dating myself saying that, but the product manager was a very isolated person that had at least in software companies, I can't speak to other product companies, but in the software companies that I was that I was in about 20 years ago, the product manager didn't have a lot of friends. It seemed like their chief purpose in life was to say no, and they had to say no to the developers. They had to say no to the salespeople. They would disappear for a long time and then come back with a set of what we called MRDs or PRDs, so marketing-based requirements, product-based requirements, and then there were development-based ones as well. And there were these huge specifications for these long, like multi-year, sometimes waterfall-based, specifications for development plans that spanned multiple years, and it was a very lockstep process. So a lot of times, there'd be a lot of R&D in the beginning, then the product management and product marketing and strategic folks would get involved. They would write a bunch of specifications, and there'd be some engineering involved with that. They'd come back down from the mountain and then reveal it to the development team, and off they would go. And that, with the advent of Agile over the past, I would say 10 years, has broken up a bit. But what is really interesting, and something that we probably should talk about within this setting, is that the role of product manager has also been atomized. So there are people that wear that hat for sure and have that responsibility. But with this advent of design thinking and agile methodologies, iterative, kind of almost like lean development philosophies, that product management responsibility is now shared between developers, designers, customers, a lot of other people. So I would say it's a democratization of that role. Once we kind of broke up that waterfall process and those philosophies start to seep in, that role became a lot more collaborative. And I think those responsibilities were collectivized, and a lot of people have ownership over the product, not just the person that is the product manager.
Right, and that comes with pros and cons, obviously. Like, I think there are things you can identify that are helpful about having that less siloed approach, where the project manager isn't like you were saying, off on the mountain, who comes down every now and then with orders from on high. But there's also challenges that can come with spreading it out that much, right? And that can affect the whole process.
Absolutely, because if things are democratized and collectivized, then when something goes wrong, whose responsibility is it? That's one problem, right? But seriously, I think it was always kind of an ill-defined role on it, if I'm being honest. At least, like I said, my experiences in software. So some people think it's someone who runs the Scrum. Some people think it's a project manager, someone who makes the trains run on time and make sure that the scope is relevant. And a lot of those come from product managers from an engineering background. They embrace a lot of that stuff and a lot of the more technical requirements. But then there's another side where product management comes from, which is the marketing side, the product marketing side of it, and knowing the segments and the customers that you want to focus on, what the landscape is from a market standpoint. So, and it used to be that you got one flavor of product manager or another, depending on their background. And I see that as much more heterogeneous now. And in fact, my capacity at Expiro oftentimes is a product manager, but I come from a UX background and a little bit of development, but mainly most of my time has been spending doing UX. So that kind of speaks to that product thinking, design thinking philosophy.
So I'm curious, I think it's worth spending a little bit of time defining, because even just like saying, oh, we're talking about product thinking is kind of such a vague term or a vague notion. It's probably worth spending a little bit of time clarifying, like, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? Which I think, we got some of the background behind it with the history of kind of coming out of product management. But yeah, what does it mean? Like, what does product thinking mean, and what does it look like to apply it to software specifically?
I mean, thinking of a product, your goal is to figure out what its purpose, what its main purpose is, and you're blending that from both the stakeholder perspective, from the whatever company you're working for to develop this product, as well as the customers you're delivering it to, and how your engineering team or your development team is able to understand that purpose and bring it to market for you. So that's at least where I see the most challenges as a product manager and a product owner, is blending all of those requirements and still maintaining that purpose for the product, and prioritizing what's going to give that product an edge in the market.
It's really as you said, Katie, it's like the holistic view, taking input from all angles, right? We talk a lot about customer 360 and knowing all the different aspects for the customer. This is sort of a 360 on product, right? Where you're looking all around, trying to get all that information from the different angles and view it for the different perspectives and put it all together in sort of one cohesive solution that you can deliver.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you take it back to design thinking, there's, depending on who you talk to, there's 5 or 6 major steps of design thinking: empathize, design, ideate, prototype, test, implement. So I think from I don't want to say myopic, but definitely if you're looking at design, you're really focusing on the form and function. If you layer in that set of product-based philosophy across that's, in my opinion, in a nutshell, product thinking. So, layer in the idea of what, not only what is the user and empathize with the user, but what is the landscape, both competitively and then also just disruptively. What does that look like from a product perspective? And what does the product life cycle look like, as you're trying to implement? So you have to think about things as how do you launch a product? How do you maintain it? And then the part of the life cycle that a lot of people don't think of is how do you gracefully end of life it? How do you degrade it down gracefully so it doesn't hurt those users and you give them an off ramp and an on ramp to something else? So I think as designers, a lot of times in design thinking, you don't think about that, but product thinking injects that part of it into that same 5 or 6 step process.
I would say lots of people still struggle with product thinking, right? It's just a new way to approach it. It's an evolution going one step above what they've been used to, right? So if they got used to design thinking, this is actually going beyond that and saying, as you said, Chris, how does marketing play into this, right? How do you launch the product? How do we end of life it at the very end? No one wants to think about that. In fact, most people are befuddled when they think that, how do we do product thinking? How do we even get started with it?
Yeah, totally agree. It's a new thing for sure, at least to me.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a question that could be asked, is everyone who's working on the team thinking about things or being asked to think about things from a product perspective? Or is it really like, well, there are 4 or 5 key people kind of organizing and planning and managing the product and the direction it's headed, but everyone at a lower level doing the day in, day out development and UX work aren't thinking about it from the product perspective. Is that the case, or is it really the kind of situation where you want everyone to be kind of in the same vein of thinking about it from the product thinking point of view?
I've worked on some projects where when the intentions of the product are communicated to the entire team, the entire team tends to get in line with that product and start thinking about how to improve the product from a product standpoint. So I've seen it go both ways, but I've also seen some success with getting the entire team on board.
Well, and I bet in those situations you uncover things that you definitely would have missed otherwise, because the people who were thinking about it at such a low level day in and day out have that different perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone wants to feel that they're adding value and doing something meaningful, right? And having them sort of part of these product discussions lets them see the bigger picture, the overall value that they're bringing out, right, with the solution. And so it's always helpful. It doesn't mean that they have to be in every single product meeting, but as long as they stay informed and feel a part of it and see the overall vision, that's always beneficial.
Yeah, we're blessed with developers at Expiro that take a lot of initiative and ownership over what they build. So I don't know if it's like that everywhere. And some of this might be noise to someone that just wants to kind of get requirements and plow through something. But I think our teams in general, but our development team specifically, are above average on wanting to get into some of this bigger picture thinking, I guess, and how the product affects users and what the overall strategy of that product is over its life cycle.
And I'm sure there's an element there of like having effective leadership to cancel out some of that noise you were talking about. Like there's a point where you don't need to know every little detail about what meetings led up to this decision on this small feature, but having context certainly helps. So I feel like part of it comes down to having effective leadership who knows how to cut out enough of the noise to where you can still have context, but still bring in those conversations and invite people to be a part of those conversations when they want to be or can be, to help direct the overall product vision.
Yeah, that's a really hard balance to strike, and one I struggle with, because I feel like I waste a lot of people's time when I talk about that stuff. I go on ad infinitum, and maybe I should just get to the point on what we've got to go build. But every retrospective that we have, at least in the teams that I'm involved with, they always say, well, we want to know more about this stuff. Like, give us a little bit more of the purpose and the bigger picture. So I'm still trying to figure out how to strike that balance. And I think it changes product to product, team to team.
Yeah, I agree. I think depending on the type of leadership, sometimes you have business requirements coming from the top down, and that's the only direction. But when you have trust between the leadership and the people working on the product, you can get that back and forth communication that can be pretty effective.
I think there's also part of it that can affect morale too, because people want to know, I would say in general, like what's the big picture goal here? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And hearing like, oh, we're working with this company or this in this space, that gets people excited, thinking, oh, that's something I use every day, or I've heard of that company. I want to work on something that directly affects them. Like, I feel like there's just an element of when you're kind of just siloed off to the side, hammering away at whatever feature, you don't even know really who's going to be using it or why. Not only do you miss the UX aspects of that and the product aspects of like knowing or being able to ask questions around who's using this and why and making it better, but there's also just like less purpose behind it. I feel like it doesn't get you as excited. It doesn't like unify you with the rest of the team as much when you don't really know what it's going to be doing when you send it out.
Right. That actually reminds me of something. taking us on a tangent. No surprise there. But as part of the Great Resignation, there were surveys and studies done on why many people have chosen to change jobs. And the number one reason wasn't money, even though it was an employee's market, right? The number one reason was actually meaning and purpose in what they're doing. Conveying this information and having them be a part of why we're building this in the first place actually gives them a lot of meaning and gives them reason to stay and give more into the product they're building.
So I think one big part of the product world that I know, or at least a term that comes up a lot when we're talking about product thinking, is like the MVPs, the minimum viable product. Like, what's the bare minimum we can do, get it out of the door, and then get more funding and refine from there. But I know Chris and I have talked a lot about like some of the pros and cons of, or the concerns that come in, or traps you can fall into with MVPs, especially when it comes to like the UX side of things, and how UX is often sacrificed when you're just trying to get something out the door, and it's really easy for things to fall by the wayside. So I don't know, I'm curious what y'all think about just like, what are some of those traps to watch out for when talking about kind of getting the minimum viable product out, knowing that improvements can be made, but how can you still make that MVP worthwhile, even though corners are going to have to be cut or things are going to have to be removed?
I can talk battle scars on this one. I mean, ad infinitum, but that empathize, or that empathy step of design thinking can be a little bit intangible. And if people aren't keyed into that, then the things that are, that are important to your end users, but are maybe a little bit less tangible, are the things that are usually at the height of the chopping, at the top of the list of the chopping block from a just cold hard scope reduction standpoint. But you chip away at those things, and it takes away. First of all, you may lose the holistic aspects of the design. So from a design perspective, you want to design holistically, and if you take little pieces out of that, eventually you're gonna lose too much of that holistic design, and it's not going to hold up. But then, in general, just some of the nice touches that just make products a little bit better. Oftentimes, those things are stripped out in the name of MVP, and I think you have to be careful of that as a product manager.
Some of that, as you said at the end, comes from the collaboration piece of it. When you have so many people that are having opinions or voicing challenges to how your product is being developed, you may have to take away certain differentiators or differentiating features of that product, and then it gets stripped back further and further to where it's maybe too genericized to really hit the market that you want at that point. And so you're constantly balancing what a minimum viable product is with what is the MVP for that market that's still going to succeed.
Yeah, exactly. Minimum viable can't just be one-to-one parity with features for your competitor or what someone's asking for. There's stuff that's a little less tangible than a feature list, but is still important. And that's usually the stuff that gets cut by the wayside when not everyone is plugged into the process. And like I said, loses that thread of empathy for the end user. And sometimes it just takes someone watching an end user try to use an application or use a competitive application or whatever, and you start to see that and lock into that empathy side of it.
And I think you touched on a point, which is, if you're doing your MVP just off of a features list that doesn't tie and doesn't roll up to a product thought, you could end up painting yourself in a corner, because you might implement something at the end of the MVP that is actually at odds with your overall product strategy, just because the way you've implemented it and your service design doesn't quite line up to what it needs to be for the overarching product vision. And so you have to be careful not just be driven by features or tasks when you're doing these MVPs, because some things like UI uplifts, sure, they can happen post MVP, but other things that are more structural or integral to the product you're building, you've sort of made a decision and gone forth with that. That's going to be harder to reverse and fix now.
So what you're saying is you can't just bring in a product person for the last month to say, hey, we're pretty much done. Just like button everything up for us.
Correct. Yeah, if you're looking for a stamp, maybe, but other than that, for success, you actually need a product person well before the development starts.
I think that's a common issue that people run into, though. They think, oh, product, that's for when it's at the end. That's when we're packaging everything up and we need to like, that's for marketing and for like figuring out pricing and all that kind of stuff. That's not early on, but yeah, it's realizing how integral product thinking is throughout the entire process, but especially at the beginning before anyone starts writing code.
It just occurred to me as you were saying that right now that maybe it's because the word production has product in it that people think product is towards the end, right? Because you're productionizing towards the end. So maybe there's some roots in that. I don't know.
I think just to add to this, I think one benefit of MVPs is it sometimes gives a chance for the team to streamline their original design and their original thinking and determine, couple months later, what do we actually need versus what we thought we needed at this initial state time, but still has to be weighed against all the traps that you guys mentioned too.
It can also serve as a helpful like checkpoint to say, okay, we've gotten the MVP out. Let's assess kind of where we are now in light of where we started for deciding for the next release. For that's still all part of the product thinking process. Is okay, we've got the MVP. Now what do we do for the next step? I think it can serve as a helpful, just like, all right, catch your breath, look back, spend some time, do a retrospective, that kind of thing, for figuring out what makes the most sense from a product perspective moving forward as well.
Yeah, this is what you said, Johnny, is like kind of getting into the art of product management and product thinking. And if you have a good product person, that's what separates them from the mediocre product management stuff that we talked about before. If you're a good product person, you're the custodian of the vision, and that vision is going to shift. But the key to MVP and lean development is that you don't know how you're going to zig and zag, and you don't know how much that vision's going to change over time. But if you're aiming towards it and you're incrementally building things that are moving towards it, that you can incrementally also test in the market, then that's the way that you build out an MVP. So what the least amount of functionality that you have to build to test to go to the next step, while, and this is the trick, without alienating your user base, and in fact still creating enough value that they want to use your product and they can maybe even see the vision with you and move towards that with you. And that's the kind of soft skills that a good product person has, and that separates them from just people just punching through a list and cutting scope when they got to get the line out of the red and into the black again.
Mm-hmm. So one interesting thing I think worth noting is, generally speaking, at Expiro, we refer to ourselves as consultants. A lot of the engagements we do are consulting engagements. So why do we have the audacity to spend a podcast talking about product thinking when aren't those at odds? Like, isn't product and services, like, those are two different things, right? I'm curious, just y'all's thoughts, like what gives y'all the confidence to talk about product thinking, and is it really that different from the services side of things?
There's a lot to unpack there.
So it's kind of a loaded question.
I'll kick it off and then I'll throw it out to the group. But the reason why Expiro got into developing products was that we helped so many people build products over a long period of time, and we did it so many times and we kept doing the same things over and over again that at some point it made sense for us to basically take the learnings and even some of the technology that we've amassed over periods of years doing things over and over again and start to productize them. So that's how we were almost dragged into it. It almost wasn't a choice.
Well, I think whether you're doing consulting work on the services side or not, having a product vision and using product thinking throughout that process is still vital, right? Like just because you're consulting or helping someone build out, these features or this thing, like it's still part of a larger product. And there's, like you were saying, doing that over and over again and being in those conversations in the room with those people over and over again, you kind of start to recognize, here's how we can direct the conversation. Here's how we can help guide through that product thinking process as well.
Yeah, I mean, we really excel. We do a ton of things and a lot of things really well, but one of the things that we really excel at is guiding people through that product process. From a technology standpoint, from a development standpoint, from a design standpoint, and from a product strategy standpoint. So those are the ingredients of a strong product organization. We happen to consult on it, but we also can apply it to our own our own aspirations to build products.
We even say we bring a product factory, if you will, because we've seen and been part of so many engagements where comparing the solutions that were built without product thinking and the ones that were, just seeing the difference. There's like a magnitude difference, right, of the value that is that comes out of the one that has proper product thought and a better future as well. Those products tend to last longer. It's more cohesive instead of just a grab bag of features that were implemented from a user experience and customer experience point of view. Things just flow better for the different personas instead of just sort of being a data showcase, right? Where you have this data, so you throw it up on the screen somewhere and add it as a tab or something, right? There has to be a better story around it. And so we've seen the value, and that tends to be more of the engagements we're invited to nowadays because of that experience we've gained and the value we see in proper product thinking.
Would you say that like product thinking is what takes something from a cool proof of concept to something that's worth selling and worth investing in? Like, is that a helpful way to kind of boil it down, or is it more than that?
I'd say it's more than that. I mean, that's part of it, but it's a lot more. Even if someone's willing to pay for it, there's, hey, I'll pay for it because I want the service, and I'll pay for it. And oh my God, I can't believe I was missing out on this for my entire life. This is a great product, And in the latter, actually, product thinking opens up the door for more of the latter, where sometimes the customer gets more value than they even perceived when purchasing.
Yeah, there's a certain frame of mind that you have to lock into when you're doing this stuff, and that is products are inherently risky. So the majority of them fail is the truth. And the investment pattern of them is that you invest up front. You basically make a bet that you think you have something that will succeed in the market. And then if you're successful, all that investment pays off, and the stereotypical hockey stick, type of growth, right? Whereas a services company is more incremental than that. It still grows, but it grows on a more linear scale. So when people, whether they're customers that we're consulting with or we're looking at investing in our own products, there's a lot of peace of mind to say that you've got a team that can help you guide you through this process. And that de-risks a lot of the inherently risky things involved in launching a new product or revamping an existing product.
You all have had experience in whether it's the delivery side or development or UX or whatever, all sorts of aspects of product thinking. So I'm just curious, like any takeaways or lessons learned that y'all have kind of held on to, or thoughts on kind of where this product thinking thing is going moving forward, because it's changed a lot over the last several years. I'm just kind of curious to hear y'all's experiences and predictions, I guess.
I guess with the first part of lessons learned, as a product manager that has experience in always serving users secondhand, one of the biggest things as you're developing the product is that collaboration and communication piece. And so as a product manager, you're as Chris mentioned earlier, you're the custodian of that vision. And so constantly communicating that vision, the requirements that come up, any type of UX challenges that you're experiencing, that's that's really key for the product to succeed throughout the development process. There's been so many products that I've worked on that for whatever reason that wasn't communicated well, and it failed either on one side or the other, for development, retail, marketing, because of that.
Yeah, so something that I've come across to probably go with like lessons learned is that a lot of people who purchase a product or want a product like to see it in the context of their domain. And so, that's one consideration when you're setting up a product up or building a product to demo it, for example. Another aspect of it is like sometimes people like it's you have to decide whether you want to provide a product in a way that is kind of like a blank slate where the person who has the product can just configure it the way they want it, or maybe it's a pre-configured sort of thing that the client can just get up and running with without doing all the configuration.
I think we've come a long way from the days of the person being on the mountain up high, or Chris said mountain up high. I was thinking more basement with the red stapler, but either way, from there to, everyone sort of being a product thinker, right? Chris often says everyone's a designer, right? And similarly, everyone is a product thinker. And that doesn't mean you need to design by committee, or I guess in this case, product by committee. But it does mean that be open to that feedback, because you never know where you'll get those little morsels of aha moments coming from, right? That then you incorporate. And the product manager still has to be the one that is, as said, the custodian or the person that's accountable for putting it all together and making the decision, and driving the direction forward.
I 100% agree with Kareem, for the record, and everyone else, but especially what Kareem just said. Okay, I'll give you my lessons learned, and then I'll contradict it with where we're headed.
Like a proper cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's right. So lessons I've learned are to actually go fast by slowing down. There's a lot of pressure in a product role, especially to get things to market, get them out and say that, we're going to deliver this. A lot of pressure externally to say, when can we expect this feature to hit? What does your roadmap look like? So what I've learned is, if you rush stuff and you jump over a lot of steps, you cut out the product thinking part of this stuff. You get to check the box and say you released it, but it turns out that never quite works right, or you didn't think through all of the pieces that affect the customer, because you're too focused on releasing or getting things out to market. So what I've learned over time is to slow down a bit and give enough space for that coalition of people that Kareem just mentioned to basically go through that process. And paradoxically, you'll move faster if you slow down a little bit in the beginning of that process, especially. Where we're headed is everything's accelerating and expectations are accelerating. So I don't know how to slow it down, right? It's two opposing types of philosophies, but it's for sure true that customers expect low code or no code experiences, especially in the analytics space that we're looking at. The analytics that you offer have to be more and more real time, and the user experience has to be more and more walk up and use. So even at Expero, where we tend to focus on expert users, we're feeling the heat that the basically this evolution and revolution in technology and the analytics space is basically turning into what we saw, for example, in the cell phone space with the iPhone, right? There's about to be a watershed moment where people expect things to be much quicker to market, easier to use, and much more robust and powerful and plug and play with integrations that they already have. So it's hard to slow down and contemplate that when things are moving faster and faster externally in the market. and expectations are going higher and higher and higher.
Right. So it's definitely an exciting time, but also, kind of very uncertain, anything can happen kind of moment. And I think, at least for me, the major takeaway is that no matter whether you're working in design or development or management or delivery, no matter where you are, your team and your project will benefit from incorporating product thinking into the process and by inviting others to do the same.
And we're always looking for good people.
Yeah, definitely. If the kinds of things we discussed today pique your interest or get you excited, we are always in the market for good people. So please reach out and let us know if you're interested. Thanks for connecting with us today. If you have a complex software problem that needs solving, thoughts on what we discussed today, or ideas on what topics we should tackle next, feel free to reach out to us at podcast@experoinc.com or on Twitter @experoinc. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.